Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. It's me, Rich, and I'm back with Kev for your fans forum this Tuesday night. We're a little bit later than usual, had a few bits and bobs to do, so thank you all for joining us already. Already loads in the watching us and in the chat, so thank you so much. Hit that like button straight away, guys. Hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. We're over 3,400. And if you do want to join the channel and become an official Villa Park Pod follower, click the link at the top of the pinned at the top of the chat and follow the instructions there. As you know, on Fans Forum Night, it's your show. You guys can get involved in the chat with any questions, any comments that you want. We have got a couple of things that we wanted to talk about, a couple of rumours. Obviously, Conference League as well starts up very soon. So yeah, wanted to talk that and anything else that's on the agenda. First of all, Kev, how are you doing this evening? It's a bit of a late one, but we're fighting fit already.
Well, it was either sit and talk to you and all of our wonderful viewers and watchers about the Villa, or get deep into the next season of Vikings. And I chose you and all the listeners and all the viewers. So there you go.
Exactly. Where else better to be? So who's in the chat? Michael is here. Good evening to you. Adamski is here as well. Rachel is in the chat as well. Thank you very much for joining us. Ahmed as well. Good evening to you. Duncan, great to have you on board. Gary, a night shift. It is, mate. It is a night shift. Bear and the Garden, good evening. Adamski says you seem up for it, mate. He is. Promise you he is.
I'm always up for it.
And Prez Lion Omar in the chat. Good evening to you, mate. Not had you involved in the chat before. Thank you very much for joining us. So first of all, I didn't mention this on Sunday. I forgot in all of the furore of the match reaction to the game. But Chris Nicholl, really sad news about Chris Nicholl. I noticed your tweet on X as it is now, mate. But yeah, a few words on Chris Nicholl. Obviously, a really good player for Villa and really underrated, but also kind of and really pivotal to kind of a period of really good times at Villa, like coming out of bad times in the kind of mid to late 70s, and then almost a catalyst for the glory years that followed that, and over 250 games for Villa, 50 caps for Northern Ireland, had very strong links to the local area as well. I'm not sure if it was him or his brother who was manager of Stourbridge, but yeah, top player.
Yeah, I was really actually quite annoyed because I meant to mention it. Obviously, the chat the other night, and then we just went across with so many things. I thought I mentioned at the end, crazy. Because obviously, I put that tweet out. Chris Nicholl, it feels weird actually. I never met the guy, I never saw him play, but because of my old man, I lost my dad 16 years ago now, 17 years ago soon to be this end of this year, and the era of Villa he talks about, he really stopped going down after he lost his job in the early 80s. And he went once with me, 1990 FA Cup, Port Vale, 6-0 win. I thought it was going to be like that every week. But I always remember him telling me about his time at the Villa, going in the sort of 60s, 70s. And Chris Nicholl was someone he spoke about a lot, what a player he was. And you're absolutely right. I think we were probably maybe third division when he joined us. Made... what was it, like 210 appearances, scored the absolute screamer against Everton, like 35, 40-yard strike, and just a real football man. If you know much about him as a career, he played for Northern Ireland in the World Cup in '82. He managed Walsall. I knew him from his time of managing Walsall locally. I know he'd been suffering with dementia for a few years, but a real good guy. A lot of people say a lot of really nice things about him, and yeah, I think you could definitely say he's up there as one of Villa's legends, because I think he would have won 2 League Cups with us, 75, 77. I'm assuming he's played in the 75 final. And yeah, you're right. That era of Aston Villa, let's not forget, the craziness we've had of... We talk, don't we, at the moment a lot about, you get those fans whenever we have a bad spell saying, 5 years ago we were in the Championship. Well, imagine being European Cup winners in 1982 and saying 10 years ago we were in the equivalent of League One. And that's what it was. And those players that were part of that team in the sort of mid-70s onwards, when Ron Saunders obviously, got involved later on and pushed us on, were pivotal, I think, to that next stage. Because I always think as well, my dad always tells me what a great player Brian Little was. And yet Brian Little's career was curtailed by injury. Some of our viewers may well know this better than me from watching it, but was curtailed by injury just before we won the league. Andy Gray, what a hero he was, of that sort of era, like, the late 70s. And he left to go to Wolves a year or two before we won the league. And that was a transition of Aston Villa from being, we're winning a few cups, to then being an absolute unbelievable force, albeit only for a couple of years, winning the league, the European Cup and the Super Cup. So Chris Nicholl, almost like that kind of almost Conor Harahan-esque, pivotal player for the club, I imagine, taking it on to that next level, but being fondly loved by everyone. So said a lot about him there. Never obviously saw him play, but really, really great guy, and RIP.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, like, looking at his Wikipedia, manager of the Aston Villa Old Stars. So I bet that was brilliant, like getting all those legends together for the charity games and all that with them. So yeah, I think he'll be absolutely remembered fondly at the club. I'm sure they'll do something at the next home game, and looking at the tributes coming in from those players around that time, and obviously afterwards as well, the great side from the 80-81 season. I'm sure that they'll be sorely missing Chris Nicholl. So yeah, top man, top player for Aston Villa. Michael says he does remember Chris playing for Villa as a giant of a man. Dunk said he was pretty much the first Villa side era in terms of Duncan's time going to watch. So yeah, brilliant stuff. And Michael said Villa were getting third division, getting crowds of 50,000. So yeah, it would have been interesting, going to watch the games in that era. Kind of. I know we went in the Championship time, and once we got on that run, and it was great going through the leagues. I bet it was similar kind of mold then, like going up from the old third division through to the second division, and then up to the first division. It must have been a great time to be a Villa fan.
Yeah, you can imagine it would have been unbelievable, really. And I always hear this. A lot of our fans again have been there in the past, and I think when we do the pods, and it's like maybe me and you on, as opposed to maybe say Martin or Max, who are a bit younger. We obviously have a memory of Villa being a big club, but we don't remember it as it was when it was really massive. And obviously, and if you went before that sort of early 80s, it was 1957 since he won anything of note. But it was funny, I saw a link the other day. I think it was the anniversary of when Mark Robins scored that goal that's famously saved Fergie's job against Forest in the FA Cup in 1990. And when it showed the little clip of Man United lifting the FA Cup and Brian Robson lifting the trophy in 1990, keeping Fergie in his job, and it mentioned they now join Aston Villa and I think it was Spurs on 7 trophies. And I thought, my God, we used to hold the most trophies. I tell you what's funny as well, my lad, when he gets into one of his YouTube vortexes, try and keep him off it, but if he's not watching too much crap, I don't mind. There's this thing that shows sort of like football honours from like when football began, and it's like a weird video, crazy music in the background, but you see for so long in the video, like Villa are just up and up and up, and it's only in the last 30 years, and it's like Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, everyone gets there, but Villa are a huge club, massive club, and we haven't done anywhere near enough to show that in the last, 70, 80 years. Really, we've seen a little spell of winning the European Cup. And if you look at still trophies won, I think we're 6th in terms of...
I know. Yeah. Well, look, people saying Gary said the trouble is we've been on 7 since 1957. That's the problem in the FA Cup. And our recent form in the FA Cup hasn't been anything to write home about. But when you talk about trophies, Kev, there is one trophy that we're certainly in with a shout with, and that's the Europa Conference League. We didn't talk about this in the match preview because we wanted to save it for the fans forum where we kind of cover the general Villa news. And the draw was Friday. Everyone was kind of really excited about it, and I think biggest tie of the round, it has to be said. Rekindling was it 2008? Around then, 2008, 2009, or was it 9-10 when we? But yeah, we draw against Ajax. Now we were obviously talking in the chat. Would we want to play a team like an Ajax, or would we want to play a team, like one of the kind of lesser teams in that kind of Conference League? What are your thoughts on drawing Ajax at this stage?
They're a big club, mate. In fact, they're more than a big club. They've got a really fantastic history, haven't they? I think they've won 4 European Cups, as it used to be called. They're the biggest club in Holland. So I look at it and think, you've got to beat all the teams, haven't you? I don't think they're in particularly great form. I think they lost recently to Alkmaar, who we beat 4-1 away.
They did.
Lost 2-1. Yeah. I don't think Jordan Henderson's been getting much plaudits there. But they're a big team. But if they were so big, they'd be, in the Champions League, wouldn't they, or the Europa League? So they've clearly fallen back from where they are. It's hard, I think, for clubs like Ajax in recent years. Any good players they've had seem to get snapped up, pretty quickly over the years and go to the sort of some of the bigger European giants. So I just think it's a big tie. I think for these two teams to have 2 European Cup winners in the Conference League in the knockout stages is great for the tournament. Actually, that's a bigger tie than some of the Europa League ties are. And yeah, I just think for Villa fans getting to go to Ajax, I mean, that'll be absolutely fantastic. And then having Ajax under the lights at Villa Park, particularly if the game is still alive, which I imagine it will be a really good night under the lights for the fans.
Absolutely. Yeah, like you say, they're not doing great guns in their league as it stands at the moment. I think they're like 5th or maybe 6th at the moment. They're like you say, they've just lost to Alkmaar. They really had to dig deep to get through. They really had to dig deep to get through against. Was it Molde they played in the last? No, Bodo Glimt. Bodo Glimt. Yeah. So, as you say, it's a big tie, but in my opinion, you want to kind of test yourself against kind of the best in that kind of tournament, really. And if we can kind of take that scalp in that tournament in the last 16, then then you've got to be really, really, really confident that we can go far in the full thing. Like you absolutely, if you're beating Ajax, then you've got to be really confident.
Well, you'd think when you're playing a team like Ajax, or if you're playing a team, like say you're playing Gothenburg in Sweden or Olympiacos in Greece, you'd be expecting that team to be 1st or 2nd. And then wherever Villa are in the league. Well, Villa are 4th, Ajax are 5th in the Eredivisie. So if Villa were in the Eredivisie, I think we'd be 15 points clear at the top. So, I think there's a big gulf now between these two teams. You never know. Knockout football, anything can happen. You have a bad night away from home. We saw what happened, obviously, with our baptism of fire against Legia Warsaw. You get a raucous stadium, fans behind them. You get maybe a couple of bad decisions, or you have a bad night in the office. And if we can get away with I think if we don't come away with at least a draw away there, then I think we'll be disappointed based on how good we are as a team. But say you lose 2-0, 3-0, they get an early goal at Villa Park. So, they're a massive, massive team, and let's not forget the history that they've got. I mentioned they won 3 European Cups back-to-back in the early 70s. And then that one in the early 90s with that unbelievable side of like Kluivert and Seedorf and, all those players. So they're a proper club, Ajax. And, but I think we should beat them. 5th in the FC 20 ahead of them. Alkmaar final and PSV Eindhoven. So, they're only 2 points ahead of go-ahead Eagles, which you'd think like if they're that kind of level in the league, then we should have a chance.
Yeah, they're very mixed at the moment in the league. Won 10, drawn 6, lost 7. I know they were terrible right at the start of the season, but I think they might have turned it around a little bit more now. But yeah, what do you think about the situation whereby we've got them, then we've got Tottenham, and then we've obviously got Ajax again before kind of West Ham away? How do you think we'll approach that? That series of games.
You know what I'm like with these kind of questions, mate? What do you think about a situation where you got a nice looking girlfriend, you got to get your hair cut before you go out on a date with her and buy some flowers? It's what we're here for, aren't we? It's what we're here for. You take it. You want the big games. Well, let's have a game which is basically almost the unofficial playoff for 4th spot in the league against Spurs. And that's sandwiched in between 2 European ties. I mean, this is what the players, this is from a career perspective, players I'm thinking like Emi Martinez, who, he's won international honours, but he's played in obviously, he played, didn't he, in the final, didn't he, of the was it the Europa League final, which they lost to Chelsea? Remember, was it 4-1? I think, did he play in that final for Arsenal, Emi Martinez?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so, because
Yeah.
it was in the time where he was kind of really challenging for that number 1 spot, wasn't he?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
not many players will have played this level of game. Obviously, Longley will have played, some of them. Pau Torres, if he obviously fit, will have played a few. Diaby would have played a bit of Europe, but you get my point. Players like McGinn, players like
McGinn
Cash,
wouldn't. Yeah,
Watkins,
yeah.
Konza if he's fit. These players, this is going to be massive for them, massive. And I just think that I think you'll see him. I think we'll rise to the challenge. I think we've got a squad of players now that we've said it a few times on the pod. When the backs are against the wall, we've responded well. Is there any bigger game than playing a European giant to get to the quarterfinals? Yeah,
absolutely. Few in the chat here. Sam is in the chat. Great to have you in the chat, mate. Up the Villa and up the Villa Park pod. Dan said we'll probably help out Ajax next. Dean says better to draw a big club, no disgrace if we're to go out, I suppose. Now we've got to go and beat them. Rachel said Ajax has been gutted recently, so they're having to reinvent themselves at the moment. Yes, Brighton beat them in the Europa League. Gary said it would have been a good final. It would have been. Gaz Oak says 4th is more important. That's the up for debate whether it's a trophy or 4th spot. Bear in the Garden says short journey back prior to the Spurs game. Yeah, not too bad in terms of journey and distance yet. Gary said, I guess so, but no one will remember 4th or 5th in a few years' time compared to a European Cup win for me. Yeah, I do think that. Looking forward to seeing a huge club like Ajax back at Villa Park. Hopefully, we will be creating memories of a lifetime. Have they got any decent players? Says Gary. I know one of their forward players is pretty, obviously, Jordan Henderson signed for them. Chuba Akpom, who scored a lot of goals for Middlesbrough, he's in their squad. I think it's Steven Berghuis, who's got quite a few goals this season. I noticed his name getting mentioned. He's got 4 goals in the Eredivisie and 8 assists, so he's quite a dangerous player. Bergwijn as well, used to play for Tottenham. He's not a bad player either. He's got 7 goals for them in the Eredivisie. So probably some decent players, but in terms of our quality, I think we're obviously in good form, I think we've got to be confident going into it. Dean said we've been playing better in league when also playing in Europe. To be fair, yeah, it usually inspires us. Rachel saying I'm sure it'll be a fantastic night when we play Ajax at home. Sam, long-time listener, first-time caller. In my opinion, you have to beat the best to be the best. Exactly. I agree with you. That's a great comment considering it's your first time calling into the show. I think the players got into a rhythm of playing Europe and Prem before Christmas, says Rachel. Yeah. Gaz said not many will remember the Conference League in a few years' time. I don't know, mate. I think, look at West Ham. Like, they've really, when you watch all their stuff, they talk about champions of Europe and all that. Like, I don't think you can underestimate winning a trophy, can you, Kev?
No, you definitely can't. And you can't also underestimate the team Ajax. I mean, you went through some of the players there, and part of me was thinking, come on now. Like,
I know.
It's not Yari Littman and Johan Cruyff.
No, it's not.
And Frank Rijkaard, is it? But
no.
and countless sort of absolute like top legends of football that I've played from, obviously, Cruyff, Ronald Koeman, all those kind of players, basically.
Oh yeah. They're not gonna send shivers down your spine, like. No, but you've got to respect the opposition, haven't you?
100%. Can't get complacent. But no, winning the trophy for Villa. I mean, this is the thing. We know how we felt when I got a little flutter of excitement when we lifted the Orange Trophy. That one-off game in Spain we played. We got a trophy for a pre-season game. Yeah, I thought, wow, just seeing McGinn lifting up this trophy. I'm like, my God, imagine if that was insert big trophy name here. We, as I alluded to on the pod, obviously the other night, we don't compete in the domestic cups. So hopefully we're taking this one seriously because we've got a real chance. And I think we can set a real marker to everyone else. I think we did that a few times in the group, actually. Bad start, but then we obviously pretty much won all the other games except for the final sort of dead rubber, really, away in Bosnia. But, we had a really good win against Alkmaar, good win against Legia at home. I think we've shown everyone what we can do. Everyone can see the league form. But this is the business end of the season now, mate. This is the business end of the season. It'll all be...
It's win by hook or by crook, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do actually take your point, Gaz. If you put a poll, though, and if it was to beat Spurs or Ajax, I think people would say beating Spurs at this moment in time. And also because of the situation with Man United and them losing a couple of games. And I've seen polls of us. I've seen kind of surveys of us being, 91% to finish 5th or something like that as it stands. I mean, it's pretty mad, really. Like the turnaround in the last few weeks with regards to results and where we're set up in the league. It's we've gone from a situation where Newcastle are obviously currently in penalties with Blackburn, but where Newcastle were, I guess, having a glimmer of breathing down our necks. Man United really, really putting the pressure on, and all of a sudden, within 2 weeks, it's like we beat Luton on Saturday. Man United lose to Man City, and they're 11 points behind us.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm also looking the other way, saying if we beat Luton on Saturday, that's 3 wins in a row.
I know. I knew you'd say this.
Let's have a little look up the table. Like, why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
I know.
Drop a few points. I know it sounds crazy, right? But why not? This is the thing. I think people keep saying, "Oh, fifth." But I want to get 3rd. Let's pick one of these 3 above us. Why not?
Yeah, no, it's definitely something to aim for, and certainly, if I think we've got Arsenal, haven't we? We've got Man City April the 3rd away from home, and Arsenal April the 14th away from home or something. If you can pick a win up out of one of those 2 games, it's still something to aim for. It's definitely something to push for. You might as well push for 2nd or 3rd than kind of watch over your shoulder for potentially Man United to catch you, because if you push for 2nd or 3rd, you're going to finish 4th or 5th, aren't you?
Yeah, and also I know this is going to be like a real crazy statement, right? But
Newcastle just won on penalties.
They just won on penalties. There you go. Yeah. Well, that that gives them something to play for this season. I don't think Man City are the force that they were. I don't think Liverpool are all that. I know they've played really well.
Haaland's just got 5 goals tonight or something, hasn't he?
Well, there you go. Right. But
I understand what you're saying.
They hung on to beat Bournemouth, didn't they? At the weekend. They've got, Grealish problems. And listen, I still think they'll win the league, right? Arsenal are a good side. We've beaten both Arsenal and Man City this season. We've got massive injury crisis, but we're coping pretty well. I don't know. I just think if it was another team that was 6, 7, 8 points behind, they'd be thinking, well, hang on a minute. There's still 12, 13 games left. Let's go for it. It doesn't seem like it's going to be likely, but you got a dream. And I just think while we're in the midst, let's keep looking upwards. Let's keep winning these games. You lose to Luton, you lose to Spurs. You're thinking, let's try and get 5th, please. Man United lose. But again, I was positive. December, we had a bit of a rocky Jan, and I'm still trying to be optimistic. We are still 4th in the league, and if we win a game and one of the teams ahead of us loses, then we close the gap. That's all we can do. We've got to play most of them again.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got to say this from Gary. Mustn't let Ajax start like a flash. We must be bold and silly bang them at home.
Yeah.
He loves it, doesn't he?
That's very good.
He loves it. But yeah, I mean, everyone in the chat's kind of positive as well. Adamski said 2nd or 1st is still possible. Dean said we still have the top 3 to play, so who knows? Gary saying 3rd, 2nd, madness.
Someone's got to finish.
Deontay's in the chat as well. They have.
Someone's got to finish 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Like, why can't it be us?
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
Maybe not 1st. Maybe not 2nd.
Yeah. Where have we got? Gaz says Watkins scores 6 and Sam sings. Yes, we want that. We want that. And Emery CC's in the chat as well. As Emery would say, keep focused on the next game. Blinkers on. Absolutely.
Oh, Rich, just on that one quickly as well, I realised obviously Luton played FA Cup, didn't they? Played FA Cup, so they've had a game before they play us on Saturday. So, and Datey played, Barkley played, Adebayo played. A few of the they made a few changes.
They've got a couple of injuries as well. I'm sure they've got a couple of injuries. So yeah, it's one of them where you've got to think we can be very confident. Definitely. Yeah, I'm sure Adebayo's injured, because Woodrow played. I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on it.
It's good for us to have had a game in the week, basically. Before.
Yeah, Sam is in our WhatsApp group wondering if I'll. No, of course, I know who you are, mate.
What's up with his full name? You know who he is?
Yeah, I know. We've got nearly 60 people watching, which is just brilliant at 11:15 on a Tuesday night. So thank you very much for tuning in. If you haven't already, smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're over 3,400 now, on the road to 4K. And if you do want to become a member, we had 2 new members on Sunday. Click the link at the top of the chat. It's pinned at the top of the chat. Or if you want to donate to the channel, click the $sign and follow the instructions from there. What I wanted to talk about as well, you mentioned there about kind of injuries, and Pau Torres obviously came off with a precaution. Looks like a bit more of a precaution. The news coming out today was that it was Villa were quietly confident that he could still be fit. They're quietly confident he can be fit to play on Saturday. What's your thoughts on that? First of all, in terms of would you risk him for the Luton game? Or would you kind of wait for those crunch games against Ajax and Tottenham?
Well, this day and age, they always do a scan, don't they? Any kind of thing, they'll have a little look at the muscle, they'll see what's going on. If they've done the scan and they think they're confident that he's not done anything obviously seriously wrong, then let's play him. If he's fit, isn't he? I don't think we're quite like Roy Hodgson desperately trying to save his job playing Michael Elise, although again in that situation I think probably hard done by because the medical staff said he could play, so he put him on and I do think that they'll only play him if they're sure that he is fit. But look, we all have a muscle tweak every now and then. He's obviously I'm sure a lot of players are playing with a little bit of discomfort. It's obviously, if it's the back of the leg, say it's hamstring area and you feel something, you're thinking, crikey, maybe this is going to ping. If they tell him actually no, you've not got any significant damage there, it doesn't look like you're on thin ice, then just a bit of a stretch it and warm it up, and I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, it's one of them where sometimes playing the games actually makes it better rather than resting for a week and then trying to come back. For another game, it might be better to give him some minutes on Saturday to then kind of keep his rhythm and keep his body in check, so to speak.
I don't know if you remember from your football days when you played as well, but amount of times I'm playing football, obviously my ankle at the moment, but and I've got a couple of muscle tweaks, and I'm thinking, can I play? And I always get through the game all right. It's very rare that actually, when when it's about to go, because you get that feeling. But I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine.
Most players, like you say, are playing not quite 100% fit. I think Leon Bailey played the other day, and he said he hadn't been well all week. So, there's obviously always things that happen in. Mixed in the chat though, Rachel said I wouldn't risk Pau at Luton. Gaz says if he's fit, play him. If he's not, don't. Which I guess is the best advice. Gary said he might have to. Chambers and Longley against a big team like Luton, no thanks. Dean said I think he's best used for Spurs. Sam says if everyone is fit, he plays Chambers and Longley. And Rachel said she thinks Chambers and Longley can do a job at Luton. Cece said she's with Rachel. Err on the side of caution. Keep Howe on the bench if unsure. Kevin's played Premier League footy. you have, mate. You have, haven't you? Premier League down Power League, anyway.
Power League. No, but you get my point, don't you? Sometimes when you've got a little, I know he's not my age, but I imagine most footballers have got some kind of discomfort somewhere. You get a whack on the leg, you got to carry on. It's whether they think it's likely to go or not. So,
Yeah.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
We compare ourselves to Premier League footballers all the time. So, yeah.
Well, I have to. I genuinely think. I mean, everyone tell me in the chat. Put this in the chat, right? If you played up front for Man City, how many goals do you reckon you'd get in your current condition? I reckon I'd get 11 goals in the Premier League if I played up front for Man City.
Come on.
What does everyone think? Just hang around the back post.
I'm clipping that up. That's definitely getting
Bernardo
clipped.
will find me. Bernardo and De Bruyne will find me in the back post. I can side foot it
in. Michael says you get 16.
16. Yeah. There
you go. Gaz definitely thinks you're deluded, by the way. And CC's laughing at you as well. We haven't heard anything about Ezri Konsa or Diego Carlos, have we, really? So it's a difficult one to say. Like, do you think they're, I mean, obviously they should be closer to getting fit, but do you think there'll be a chance that one of those could make the bench or anything like that this weekend?
I mean, you never know, do we, Villa? We always seem to be funny with injuries. There's always like, oh, he'll be out for a couple of weeks. And then, remember Dean Smith, Grealish should be back next week. And he came back like
he's on the grass.
Yeah. Crazy. I mean, Mings is on the grass, isn't he? So, and they don't reckon he'll play this season. There's a lot of players that are back in action. It's really positive to see Mings back with the squad. It feels like he's ahead of Buendia in some ways, but who knows? I would be very surprised to see. I think from what I've seen, Carlos is a bit longer. He's probably more looking like end of March, start of April. Konsa, I think it's going to be a bit earlier, but I mean, you never say never, do you? I think if he's on the bench, it's a good sign. But any doubts over Torres? Everyone's saying play Chambers along late. I want to believe that Chambers, as he was, second half the other day, can do an okay job. But if Torres is fit, I think he's such a great player. I think we've got to play him.
Yeah, he'll be massive for us, particularly a team like Luton, who will, I'm sure, kind of put the pressure on us at times. And you want to have that composure. You want to be able to pick out passes and kind of, control the game. And he will be vital for us to do that. So yeah, if he's fit, then I think we play him, in my opinion.
Do you think there's an outside chance that something will happen with Courtney Halls? I know he's not registered, but like whether they'll, let's say like worst case scenario, like Torres does break down, and then I don't know.
Think you can. I don't think you can because he's a senior player.
An emergency situation that's happened in the past, hasn't it, with keepers and stuff? But
keepers is a different one. Yeah, I think we'd have to bring in a youth. We'd have to bring a youth player in. I don't think you'd be allowed to bring Courtney Halls in. Yeah, I just don't think you would. Yeah. Yeah, I honestly don't think. I think goalkeepers is slightly different.
Couldn't they say he's a goalie and then stick him up?
Yeah, maybe. Put some goalie gloves on him.
I'm definitely a goalie. Premier League come and check it.
Knowing what knowing the kind of admin at the Premier League and the referees and that, he'd probably get away with it. But yeah,
yes, he would.
Yeah. Dean said, think Carlos is done, recurring hammy. Marine Boy said, has Paul McGrath still got his boots? Gaz thinks that Konsa will be back versus Spurs. I think so. Gary said, we need to get through now with no more injuries. I understand. I totally agree with you. Paul said, I hear that Ron Vlaar is training with Villa as well. Yeah, it's getting pretty desperate. Rachel thinks saying Bogard will be the next by the sounds of it.
Yeah,
so that would be interesting. Yeah. We also heard news of, and this I'll mention this on the transfer talk last week about Bayern Munich talking about our manager and potentially him being on a shortlist. But there was, I don't know, some report saying that he wouldn't, Unai Emery wouldn't be interested in Chelsea because of the lack of control that he'd have, and obviously it's a complete shit show at Chelsea. Don't get me wrong. But do you think that there will be this increased speculation or, increased kind of courting of Unai Emery by so-called bigger clubs across Europe because of the work that he's done at Villa?
Probably, yeah. And I do think that I've always been really, really confident about the fact that the way it's been set up from Aston Villa. Look, I think anyone who knows anything about Aston Villa knows that as much as we always have our claret and blue tinted specs on there, we've bought his granddad and dad's club, Rail Union. We've got all of his mates, Vidagani and Monchi, and everyone's around him. He's got the Spanish-speaking people, but obviously people that he's worked with in the past as well, a lot of them. Everything's funneled through him. He makes all the decisions. It's all about Unai Emery. The only thing that makes me now slightly question that is this FFP thing, because if you're restricted from truly getting to where we want to get to, then maybe that might make him think he wants to have an opportunity where he's got, unbelievable revenues to work with and be able to buy better players. But then, historically, did he do great at Arsenal? Did he do great at PSG? He did okay at those clubs. But as two big clubs, did it work for him? I think he's worked way better at the Villarreals, the Sevillas, all those type of teams. So I look at the situation and think, as much as I'm slightly blinded by this, I don't know why he'd leave. Where would he go to? I mean, the Spanish job, but is he too young for that? Would he go to Barca or Real Madrid knowing he could be out of a job in 6 months if they take, which those kind of clubs could easily do? They could get rid of you. So yeah, Bayern's obviously a massive job. Would he go to another English team now? Would he have the same level of adoration and love? Look what happened at Arsenal. He actually did a really good job when you're looking at it on balance, and yet he was hugely derided, a joke figure. He's absolutely adored by Villa. We are a sleeping giant of a club. I think he could do some unbelievable things at Aston Villa. He stays at Villa, FFP aside, right? But, maybe you got to sell a big player and bring through a couple of youth prospects. I think we could win the league in the next 5 years.
Well, that's it. I mean, I know Kieran Maguire, like the football finance expert, said, Villa will have to box clever with regards to FFP, but I've said it before. That's the similar situation with multiple clubs across the Premier League. Unless they change or relax some sort of the rulings, whether it's to do with like inflation, because the rules are the same, although inflation has gone up, or whether they kind of, listen to some of the, because it'll impact some of the so-called big six. I guarantee you Man United will be putting pressure on about the FFP ruling. I guarantee Chelsea will be putting pressure on about the FFP ruling. As soon as big players stop being with the ability of being able to come to the Premier League, and then they start going to Italy or they start going to Spain instead, the Premier League or whoever will relax these profit and sustainability rules. I know FFP is more of a UEFA ruling, I believe, but they will do something about it, because as soon as those clubs can't attract the better players, then you'll soon see that they'll change the rulings, and it'll only take Villa to get in the Champions League after Newcastle got in it last season, and Man United to obviously not get into it this season, and all of a sudden the big boys will start putting the pressure.
Well, Chelsea don't get in, Man United don't get in.
Yeah,
you can see what's going to happen, can't you? So look, either way, I look at it and think I'm so supremely confident. If you look at our team, right, we talk so much, don't we, about our midfield. We sold Chukwuemeka, we sold Grealish, we got 120 million, and we've spent 17.5 on Douglas Luiz, 15 million, 2.5 on McGinn. Tielemans free. We got obviously Jacob Ramsey through the system. We got Kamara free. Sure, you got wages on top of that, but there are some bargains to be done. If you look throughout our team,
you can imagine us making a couple of other free transfer signings in the summer. You can imagine that already being done with Monchi and one or two dealings, and then you look at the profile of player that we've bought. This Kosta Nedeljkovic, who's actually injured, which the curse runs deep with Villa. But you Morgan Rogers and one or two others. So you can see the kind of profile of player that they're buying in, and then obviously if you get in a couple of like free transfers, a la Yuri Tielemans, Boubacar Kamara, and if you're a player looking at what Villa have done with those players, like the players that have come in on free transfers, then you're going to be like thinking, well, actually, I'll go and sign for Villa, because look where they are. Like, look how much they're moving forward as a club. Like, look at the manager that they've got. Like, we know now that younger players and players of that generation, they want it to be about them. They want it to be like, well, what is this club going to do for me? How is it gonna like benefit me? And if they know they've got a coach like Unai Emery, the detail that he goes into, if they look at what players that he's improved, like every single player has improved under his tutelage at Villa, you're just going to want to go and play for them.
Yeah, he's the dream ticket, isn't he? He is, for me, he's up there with play for Klopp, play for Pep, play for Emery. You know, these type of managers. He's unbelievable. I think you can just look at that interaction with Luca Digne at the weekend, where again the thought process is he's having a go at Digne for something that maybe Moreno's doing on the pitch. It's like Digne's like, what me, what? The level of energy and effort and enthusiasm that he's got. You see him on the pitch when he celebrates goals and how much he cares. And yet it's not all about him. He doesn't take all the adulation at the end. He's not up there like a Gary O'Neill or a Jurgen Klopp punching the air and, getting the crowd to cheer. He wants it to be about the players. He's just a dream of a manager for a fan. He's a dream of a manager for a player. And you mentioned it, Rich, the amount of players we've got, how many of our players haven't got better under Unai Emery? And if you think about the money we've paid for people, and then the money they're worth now, you got the obvious ones, right? You've got the free transfers. But even players like Bailey were like, 30 million, is he a flop? And he's probably worth double that now. Martinez, 20 million, a bit risky. He had one good season. He's probably worth 4 to 5 times that now with his current stock, if someone will pay it. What was Konza? 12 million?
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say Konza. Yeah.
12 million. I mean, Cash was
Douglas Luiz.
14, something like that, and probably worth in his 20s. Pau Torres, how much was Pau Torres? 30 million?
Maybe 42, I want to say, or up to that. I mean, there's probably some sort of like clauses in it. Yeah, I mean, the current stock of our players at the moment, I don't think could be any higher.
Watkins,
Watkins. Yeah. So it is good. It is good. But yeah, in the chat there are some where you think, there is a situation where money might talk, or a club of the stature of, would obviously turn his head. But there's so many things going in Villa's favour at the moment that you think he would be comfortable where he is and wanting to continue seeing up through that project. In the chat, don't see Unai going anywhere, says Michael. Dean said he would be on everyone's shortlist. Absolutely. Rachel saying it's all rubbish about Emery and other clubs. The other clubs are starting to panic. Gaz said Emery wants to stay in the Premier League. I'm not worried yet. That's in relation to Chelsea, definitely. Gary said the thing is Unai respects the owners and they respect him.
Yeah.
Marine Boy does say money talks, and that's the problem. Everyone has a price. Ask yourself the same question. Gaz said Emery would have known about FFP, hence why he is brought in the backroom team. Paul said he's secure with Villa. We could have a statue of him outside the ground. That would be amazing. And Dean said if he has everything he needs to succeed at Villa. Yeah, they are panicking at the moment, i.e. Bayern and Chelsea, so not ideal situations. I don't know if he's still living at the Belfry. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, it would be good to really settle roots in Birmingham.
I think he's got a 2-bedroom flat in Castle Bromwich. I think he has now. So no, I don't know where he is.
Maybe Sparkill, because apparently that's an amazing place.
Yeah,
if you look at the news.
Proper Birmingham. I mean, you know what? There are some lovely parts of Birmingham, city centre, outskirts. So I'd like to think he's got some roots down. I'd like to think he has. Yeah, I mean, he was. I mean, I think the Belfry was great for him because he has his late nights at Bodymore, and he can just pop down the road to the hotel.
Well, he still works. Yeah, he still works till whatever time. So I don't think he'd get much use out of an apartment or a flat. He wouldn't be there. Paul said they're looking to change FFP. And Gaz said if United and Chelsea start campaigning against the profit and sustainability, it should change. There should be enough teams to vote for it. Rachel saying we have to be careful with free signings as our player wages to revenue is high. That is a very good point, actually. But yeah, if we got rid of Coutinho and potentially Digne off the list, that would. Yeah, it's always a balancing act, definitely. Definitely. Charlie said there must be a blue nose in the medical team at this point. Yeah, 100%. Deanne said the only move I see Emery making is from Conference League to the Champions League with Villa.
Yes, love that, mate.
Adamski's jumped out the chat. No problem, mate. Thank you for tuning in.
Probably because he's got work. Probably got work in Australia.
Yeah, he's probably got work. Yeah,
Gary
said we don't need too many players now. One more transfer window and we are ready. Paul said if we bought back Jaden, that will affect FFP because he's young. That's a mad one. That because he has really hit the ground running, hasn't he, at Hull? Yeah. We'll come. Yeah, I'll ask you this question now. Whose value has risen the most for you?
John McGinn. 2.5 million. I mean, you can't count the free signings in this, can you? Because it's not really fair, free signing, you know. But John McGinn, 2.5 million. He's got to be worth 60 million. So I think it has to be. Martinez has probably gone up 4 times. But, Watkins has probably gone up double, treble, maybe. You could probably argue 100 million for Watkins. But 2.5 million to 50 million is some going in it, some going. So, 20 times, 20x value, I reckon. What do you reckon?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you're far off, mate. I mean, there might have been an argument with regards to Louise, maybe 15 million we signed him for.
Times that by 20, though. You're not selling him for 300 million, are we?
No, yeah, that's very true.
McGinn's 2.5 million, and so in terms of value, Louise's value has gone up unbelievably, but he was 6 times worth more than McGinn transfer fee.
Yeah, people. Ahmed saying Douglas, Dean saying Dougie from 15 mil. Gaz said Louise 15 mil to 100 mil. It's just that it's a shame, isn't it? Because I think McGinn hasn't got that elegance about him, has he? It's mad, isn't it? Like you probably get 35 million for John McGinn, but you'd get 100 million for Douglas Luiz.
You get more than 35 million for John McGinn. I think the way he is right now. I think he's such a driving.
29 though, isn't he? 29, 30.
In this day and age, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting a bit kind of carried away with this, but yeah, Luiz is younger. I mean, Luiz is, as you know, I think he's the best player at the club. So, but I think if he did sell him, I think we could command a hefty fee for him. If we're talking who we're more likely to sell, everyone's mentioned, haven't they? Dina, obviously, Coutinho, maybe a long lay. If to rumours you might keep him, but you can get a cheaper centre half in. Den Donker, obviously, you think will go. If there has to be another sale of hopefully we think with those ones there, we might have enough to claw some cash back, to keep us going. If we've got a setup and a big asset, like we spoke about the other day, who is it going to be? Well, it ain't going to be Kamara now if he's out for over a year. So you're probably looking at Eloise. I don't think we can, unless Watkins really forces a move, if we don't get Champions League. But who are you going to replace Watkins with? So this is the thing,
exactly. Isn't it? Yeah, people in the chat saying the Kamara, Ramsey, Dougie, maybe. Yeah, it's a difficult one. Duran, Dean says, get some money for him. Talking on potential players, though, we saw another report. I don't exactly know where this came from, but it's fun anyway, chatting about it. And Gareth actually. So if you haven't checked out Talking Tactics, do check that out. But Gareth was talking about the rumor of Lucas Paqueta. I don't think this happens at all, but he mentioned in terms of the profile of player, he fits the bill in terms of kind of what we'd potentially be looking for, or what would be effective for us. And he's done like a bit of a viz here in terms of a comparison. So like successful dribbles, obviously strong at, pretty good at ball recoveries, shots, goals, assists, aerial ability, ball carrying through balls, defensive contribution and tackling. So and he can obviously play in various positions, and obviously we like that, and Emery likes that. What are your thoughts on Paqueta? He's can be a bit hit and miss, but there's certain games where he's absolutely fantastic.
I think he's a tremendous player from what I've seen. I think he's the jewel in their crown at West Ham. I know obviously Bowen's been brilliant, and Ward-Prowse has done well, and Kudus looks like a good player. Funny their game was the other night. I felt like Brentford were always going to get back in it, even at 4-1 down. I just felt like they looked like they were going to cause them some problems. But he's just an absolute. He's a great player. I think he would fit the profile. He's still decent age, probably like mid-20s, 26, something like that, 27, whatever. And you'd think, well, if he was leaving Man City, but then we've got to start looking at ourselves now as, for a top 4 team, we get in the Champions League. We haven't really spoken about this because it still feels like we don't want to tempt fate and jinx it with getting in there. But if we get in the Champions League, look at Newcastle getting Guimaraes and Botman and Isak, like that profile of player going up. And Matty Target, of course, So, no offense, Matty. Right. Then Villa, well, surely we're going to look at a higher profile player to get the Champions League. And would he be someone, a team that hasn't really done a huge amount this season, West Ham, that we could get? Who knows?
Yeah. Who's in the chat here? Gary said he'd cost a Paqueta. Rachel said he's got an 85 million release clause. Rob said Paqueta would cost more as much as we claimed Dougie would go for. Ahmed doesn't think we'd have a chance. Dean said West Ham stats without him are shit. Yeah, he comes back the other night and they win 4-2, obviously, and Bowen gets a hat trick. Doesn't fit the bill, says Rob. Ahmed said, but after Glock, the Israeli youngster. Yeah, I did see that as well. I mentioned that, but yeah, it's going to be interesting because he obviously Man City courted him, as you say, Kev, and it does potentially, depending on where West Ham finish and what happens with them, you'd think that because he was very, very close to going, you'd think that other clubs will come in for him. So, yeah, be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's unlikely, isn't it, with that release?
Yeah.
But I think we have to start putting our sights higher, subject to us being able to afford it, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a few questions in. So let's have a look. So Paul, and get your questions in terms of anything else that you want to ask us before we finish up. So Paul said, "Hi, Richard, Kev, how are you doing? Do you think Bailey is going to be player of the season?"
I think at the moment, if it keeps going as it is, I think it'll be Ollie Watkins. I think if he gets 20 goals, then I think it will be him. I think if Power stayed fit throughout the season and Watkins has scored a few less, I think he would have been a shout for it. McGinn, I think, would be a shout for it. Louise, definitely 9 goals at home, Premier League this season from a midfielder. Brilliant. But and Bailey obviously has been tremendous this year. But I think if Watkins gets himself 20 goals and 25, 30 in all comps, I think it has to be Watkins.
Yeah. And Spengden asked, how much would Bailey fetch if we were to value him now?
I mean, let's go back to the point I made the other day. If Anthony and Sancho are 80 odd million each, he's got to be worth 470 million then, surely, hasn't he? Based on that. I think in the way we look at Kai Havertz was what, 60, 70 million. I think Bailey, the fitness he's shown in the last year and a half, I think you've got to be looking at 80 million plus in the current market. Don't see anything else.
Yeah. Paul also asks, if we get a Champions League spot, do you think we will go for the Europa Conference League? I guess it depends on like the timing of it all.
Like, you mean if we're still in the mix for it, basically?
Yeah. So if we're like, I don't know, if we say lose a couple of games and we're 5th or something in the Prem and we're 1 point behind Spurs, but we're in the semi-final of the Conference League, do you think he sacrifices the Conference League to kind of push for the Champions League?
I mean, sacrifice is an interesting word. If he makes a couple of changes, he's not like Martin O'Neill to Russia-esque, taking the under 10 team basically. So no, I don't think we will. I think if we get Ajax, then we're going to go for it. I think we get to the quarters. I think he'll hit all the games hard. I think he has to. Really. I think he has to.
I can't ask the Grealish question again. I can't.
Go on, ask it. Go on, ask it.
Would you buy Grealish back? Says Marine Boy. Personally, he wouldn't.
Nostalgic reasons wise, I'd absolutely love to have him back at Villa, rekindling that form that he showed for us. I defy anybody to watch any clips of Grealish over the 2-3 years before he left Villa. Watch that and then tell me you wouldn't have him back. You're basing it on what you've seen lately. I think the bigger thing for me would be the transfer fee that they'd want for him, and I don't see us paying that, so I don't see it happening. But I'd love him basically. Now, Ross Barkley might get on a
yes, people are in there.
Yeah. Barkley,
in the
I
chat.
would 100% take back on his current form. I think he's been unbelievable this season. You probably get him on.
You won't be popular with Rob. You would not be popular with Rob.
Well, I thought he looked pretty good that season until he got his injuries. We started off that season like we win 4 in a row, like the first 4 games of the season. He scored an absolute banger against Leicester, scored a header against Southampton. That game against one of my favourite games in recent years is that 3-0 away when Arsenal. Watkins got 2, right? And it was Barkley and Grealish just taking the piss out of Arsenal, basically.
Yeah, I don't think I would have him back.
Oh,
but he has done very well to turn it round.
On a free, on like, I don't know, 60 grand a week or something.
Yeah.
I
don't know. I think he likes being the big fish in a smaller pond.
I don't know. What I've seen this season, I'm just going to base it on this season.
Oh, he's been brilliant, and he's changed his game. He plays a bit more deeper, but not for me. Not for me. But look, it's all about opinions. It's all about opinions.
Yeah.
What have we got here? Dean said, after the Newcastle's capitulation in the Champions League this season, do you think we could compete?
Yeah, I think we've actually probably got we've got a better squad now. If obviously everyone was fit, then I probably had going into it. I think we do, and I think that I think we'd strengthen. So define compete. I mean, getting through the group stage would be an achievement, right? So it's obviously not easy in the Champions League, and they got found out a little bit. But I mean, Unai's got a lot more experience in European football than Eddie Howe, and that goes a long way. He took Villarreal to the semi-finals of the Champions League. So I think that he knows how to play those games. I mean, obviously we put the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup to one side, right? But he knows how to play those games in Europe. He's proven up with Aston Villa. Think about the argument, right? It's our first season back in Europe for 14 years. We had that first game against Legia where everyone said, hang on a minute, we're going to be found out here. And then we've basically romped through the group. So I know some of those games were a bit closer, last-minute winners and all that kind of stuff. But I think we've performed better. It hasn't affected us anywhere near as much as people thought it would in the league. We've been to some far-flung parts of Eastern Europe. So I'm not saying we'd win it or get to the quarters or the semis, but I do think we could. I think we could compete if we get there. I think we would strengthen the squad as well.
Yeah. This is like you said before. This is why you're in it. This is why you want to do it. Like you've got to go for it. Like I'm sure Newcastle, yes, they haven't had the best of seasons and everything like that. But they wouldn't trade it in for anything. Like they beat PSG. Yes, they probably threw it away. They could have gone through, but like to go through that and to experience it and potentially they're still in the FA Cup now. They've still got an opportunity of finishing top 6 even if they go on a good run. So, that would still be a good season for them. So it's you've got to go for it when it comes. Absolutely.
I don't think that. I think they'll regret that at all. I mean, absolutely. I mean, for them to qualify last season based on them being where they were in the league, it was at the year before Christmas, was an unbelievable job by Howe. And the overperformance of some of their players. And they've got some absolutely tremendous players. They've obviously had some injury problems, but we mentioned some of the players earlier. I think that they've got a shout in the FA Cup this season. And yeah, obviously it's just been hard for them to compete, hasn't it? With that Champions League campaign, and they did get a really, really hard group, didn't they? Let's be clear.
Yeah,
sounds exciting.
A lot of people are saying it's like remind us that it's different next year. Like you get a guaranteed 8 games, and then it's kind of how you do across those games, isn't it? That you that kind of determines whether you get through to the last 16. Like it's a different setup. There's more teams in it next season.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting to see what happens. And what type of teams we get. But yeah, as Spengden says, the Conference League has been a really good dress rehearsal for us to get ready and get that European experience.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You're getting used to playing that midweek game, that game at the weekend. Can you compete? Can you keep players fresh? Can you rotate well enough? It's also given a lot of our players. This is the other side of it as well. Like actually, a lot of these players have had to step in. When Long had to step in with injuries, he played a bit in the Conference Leagues. It wasn't like he was totally rusty. He got a bit. Duran was getting minutes in it. He was able to use Diaby a bit more when he wasn't playing in the league. So keeping those players fairly fresh. And with our squad now, I know we've had injuries, but you would see a situation where maybe against an Ajax, you'd probably then make a couple of changes possibly to, if everyone we've got some more injuries back, you might still play a long lay instead of a Torres one of the games, potentially if you wanted to free him up and keep him fresh for the game afterwards. So I think it's been ideal, and it's what we wanted, wasn't it?
Exactly. Final question, and we are going to do a full match preview for Luton coming up later this week, but we might as well get ahead of it. Do we beat Luton now?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, we are.
There you go.
Everybody, will he score? Yes. No. I just think we're on a bit of a run now. It's not going to be easy going to Kenilworth Road. You've alluded to the fact they've got a couple of injuries. They've had a midweek game. Again, I'll argue that point the other way when we have a midweek game against Ajax when I say we're going to beat Spurs. But, they've clearly not got as strong a squad as us. I don't know. I just feel like we will. I feel like we'll be too good for them. So, I'm going to say, yeah.
Yeah, I'm confident. But yeah, be good to get some news on injuries coming up later this week. But yeah, I'm confident on that. Kev, we will call it a night there. 93 people watching at 20 past 11 at night. That is incredible. Thank you all so much for tuning in to us rambling on. But yeah, we do love this show, the Fans Forum. Obviously, we set a few things that we like to chat about, but we'd like to get your comments and questions in. So thank you all for joining us. Hit the like button on your way out. Hit the subscribe button. If you're new to the channel, help us on the road to 4K. We'll be back later this week with, as I say, match preview, any lunchtime lives or transfer talk shows. We'll be back this week. So look out for the shows. And as always, do remember, we'll follow the Villa. Thanks, everyone.